for joining me for the Plant Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Howie Jacobson. All right, today's episode is with a longtime friend and returning multiple-time podcast guest, Sid Garza-Hillman. Sid is particularly cranky today. In today's episode, we're talking about his book, 6 Truths. Live by these truths and be happy. Don't and you won't. It's a provocative title. And as I said, Sid's cranky. He is laying it out for us in ways that are sometimes hard to hear. But there's a lot of good stuff in here and a lot of things that are challenging. And I hope you will enjoy it and get a lot of value out of it. So without further ado, Sid Garza-Hillman, welcome back to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Good to be here, as always, Howie.
Oh, you nailed it.
first time ever. I felt good. I felt like I was a clutch player.
Yeah. we've been preparing for this for our whole lives, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're one of the few podcast guests who's like more podcasty than I am. Like you got your fancy mic and your headphones.
I find it best to outshine anybody who's hosting me on their podcast.
Right. Last time we do this. So you just this year came out with a new book called 6 Truths. And the subtitle is Live by These Truths and Be Happy. Don't and you won't. And it's intriguing. And I put it on my shelf and I totally ignored it for about 6 months. And then I decided because we had a little email conversation and I'm like, I'm going to get to it. And you're
right.
Like, okay, just making sure the publisher's doing their job.
Yeah.
And I kept on snoozing it. Like I discovered the snooze feature in Gmail and I just love the snooze feature. And so we're like, I'll look at it next week. And yeah. I don't know why. I mean, it's been a busy year, but maybe I didn't want truths, you know?
Well, sometimes we don't want truth. And by the way, is the snooze feature not the most indicative technology of our time? I mean, it kind of, it's like the perfect solution to our modern day craziness. I'm just going to snooze that down. I kick that can down the road a little bit.
Kick that can.
Yeah.
So, and there's a section in your book about can kicking.
There is. Yeah. A lot of can kicking in that book. Yeah, no, but for real, it's get it done or, not get it done. That sounds way more rah than it is in the book, but that is part of the message for sure.
Right. On the other hand, the snooze feature has allowed me to stay at inbox 0 for a good year now.
There's some positives there. Good. Silver lining.
So anyway, I just finally picked it up and decided the can was no longer in kickable form. It was flat.
Smashed.
So and I started reading it and I'm like, there's a lot to talk about in here. And I don't know if you're in the same space you were mentally, emotionally when you wrote it, but you're kind of pissed in this book, aren't you? A little bit?
I'm happily pissed.
Okay. I wanted to double check that. I'm like, Sid's cranky here.
I'm a little curmudgeonly, and it's absolutely true. Like I'm a very happy in my life person, but in the work, there's no doubt about that. I wanted that to come true. I mean, that's why the subtitle is "Live by these truths and be happy. Don't and you won't." It's a little bit like, we can't. Can we swear on this podcast? Is this a no swearing podcast?
Please.
Okay, this is a little bit of a shut the fuck up kind of book. Like. The damage that quick fixes are doing, the damage that marketing is doing in the food realm and the exercise realm and the whole quick fix health arena, happiness arena is substantial. And I just thought social media, perfect example, the damage these things are doing to people pisses me off. It doesn't make me unhappy as a person, but it definitely makes me passionate about the work I'm doing and the message that I wanted to bring in that book. There's no doubt about that. I wanted to just lay it down. I wanted to write a book that did not mince words. But I'll also have fun with it in theory, unless you just don't like my sense of humor. But I did bring humor into the book. I designed it to be very grab a few pages, put it back down kind of thing that somebody could just pick up and put down at random times. And so that was my mission.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's get into it because I want to have some sort of meta conversations, but I think they won't make sense until we actually talk about some of the truths. So I'm going to start. So it's been out 6 months. You've gotten some feedback, I presume, from readers. Can you tell me which truth has gotten the most feedback, either positive or negative?
Well, here's what's kind of funny. So, do you remember in the book? I'm assuming you've memorized most of it. That I take on comment culture quite a bit.
Yeah.
So what's interesting
you turned off your YouTube comments.
Yeah, over a year. Yeah, long before I wrote the book. Even turned off YouTube comments. I posted a new video. No comments. I quit all social media in 2018. I have not read a single review of this book. Literally not read a single review.
Huh.
And I got some emails from people saying, read your book, had some thoughts. And I go, awesome. Don't want to hear them. And this is weird. And this is we're diving right into the heavy stuff here. It's not that I didn't get feedback on the book. When I was writing it, I gave it to friends that I trust, that I said, listen, be a hard ass on this, read it. And they were like, this doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. That's good. Keep that. I use a lot of their comments and some of them not. But I really wanted to take to the mat this idea that everybody has a voice because they have a Twitter account, that I have to So what I say in the book is we have freedom of speech, and I cherish freedom of speech, but we also have freedom of listening. And just because you can talk doesn't mean I have to listen to what you have to say. And we've gotten very comfortable with being an authority on everything. We can say something about everything. And I think that it behooves us personally to quiet down a little bit, to shut ourselves off a little bit from the world, to grab moments, I call it stealing moments, of solitude, to think. We are not. I just did a video recently on intermittent fasting. I don't know. Do you do intermittent fasting?
Every night.
Exactly. So I'm kind of an intermittent.
Maybe not as long as some.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I'm a fan, and it's really helped me. I've a lot more energy. All the benefits are true in my opinion, and the research I've done on it, I like it. Anyway, I did a video on mental intermittent fasting. That physical intermittent fasting is great, giving your body some time to not always be in input mode of shoving things in our mouths all the time. But I think the same thing applies to how we live our lives mentally, to not shove stuff into our heads all the time. And I'm a podcaster. I love podcasts, but there's podcasts and social media and news and movies and TV, and it's a constant information shove. And I think it's taken us down in terms of our stress, in terms of our lives, quality of lives. So the comment culture thing is a perfect example. I want people to look at my work, listen to my work, either dig it or don't dig it. If you don't like it, don't come back. If you dig it, great. But take what you get from it, if you get something, and use that in your life. I don't need to hear about it. The book's out. There's nothing I can do about it. I want them to either hate it and go, well, that sucks, and I'm not going to do those things, or go, that was really useful stuff. Let me apply it in my life. I think it was disingenuous of me for years to say, no, I definitely want to hear what you have to say about the book that I already put out that I cannot do anything about, because I didn't. I don't care. I was just being nice. And I try to make sure that people know it's not a mean thing. I'm not disregarding them as people. They're great. If I want your opinion, I'll ask for it, kind of thing. And that's what that is. And it's for their good as well as my good. I don't want to feel bad about something I wrote in the book that I can't do anything about now. I was happy with it when I put it out. I've moved on and working on a new book. I don't want to really think about 6 truths, not this, what I mean? Like in terms of re-editing the book, it's done. That ship's left the harbor. So it was a really tough thing for me to sort of go I actually honestly don't care, not about you as a person, but I don't care about your feedback. So long answer to your short question, which is the feedback generally has been good, I'm assuming. I mean, I can see I have almost 5 stars on Amazon, but I've never read a single review of the book. So I don't know what people are actually saying about it.
Okay. So, what's coming to me is that there's certainly a healthy lack of obsessive need for approval that I'm hearing from you. Right. Like one of the things that I have felt when I go and read reviews, when I put a book out and I'm looking at the Amazon reviews, like one of the things it's like, stroke me, like, that feels good. Pat me on the head. Tell me how much you loved it. And like, as a writer, I don't feel bad for liking that, because writing is so solitary. But I'm sure there's also.
I agree with you. However, my counterpoint to that would be that I'm also happy when people say they're getting a lot from my book. They don't get into specifics, but they go, your book's really been helpful and it's really kept me, focused, and I'm really feeling great about it. I go, great. It feels amazing. But that's, to me, qualitatively different than somebody saying, in truth number 5, you said this one thing and it was it's like the specifics of it. I think people are getting benefit from the book. I think I'm really happy with the book. But the review, the critic, kind of thing is what I've just realized I'm not interested in. And that I felt like, I mean, I'm a longtime musician, and, I put out albums and toured, and, it was always like that feedback thing. And most people could be really happy, but that one person that isn't, that's what sticks with you. I just got tired of the whole thing about this when it came to social media. That's why I quit. I was like, 99 happy, really nice things. One person says something negative and that ruins my day. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be anywhere around that anymore. It's getting in the way of my work, of my productivity. I want to be able to be honest and authentic in my work. And so I do need a certain semblance, and I'm sure you do too, during the writing of it, where I don't want to hear from anybody. I want to get really, and this is how it goes for my songwriting too. I don't want to think, is this going to be a hit? What do you think about this? Is this going to be, I want to get true. And if people dig it or don't, that's out of my control once the song's out. But I want to be as inward during the creation process as possible. And this helped me in that regard. Not even being in the world of that for the most part, like with social media, allowed me to really focus on the book and really get it the way I wanted to get it.
Yeah, I'm feeling that sort of it's much more iterative for me, and it's just maybe the amplitude of the way we work. But I like feedback. Like, yeah, I want to be by myself and thinking, about what's the truth here. And at the same time, like in the last book that I wrote, there were people who gave us feedback that during the writing that made it so much less worse, where like just huge mistakes we could have made. So I think partly what you're saying is be very stingy about who you let be your critic.
That's right. Oh yeah, I had plenty of critics of my book. I want to be clear about that again. I sent the manuscript to a few people and said, read this and tear it apart. So it wasn't like I was completely isolated in that regard, but I was definitely mostly. And when I asked somebody for feedback, it was because that was a specific person that I trusted to be honest about and they were criticizing it in a good way, as a book. They were saying like, listen, this isn't going to read well. I want to make sure my message comes through. And, you get so close to a piece of work that you can't have no perspective all of a sudden. And so at that point, to getting it to the editor that worked for the publisher, to the publisher himself, and to at least 3 more friends that I trusted, and said, listen, you're a smart person. Can you just look at this thing and go, this sucks, or whatever. And then it's not like I'm in full isolation, but there's a very big difference between that and opening up yourself to everybody who's an authority about everything. I mean, it's like, I work at the Stanford Inn. When we get these reviews, it's not like I didn't like the food. It's like, this is what you should do instead. It's like, well, you're not a cook, you're not a chef. And even if you were, it's up to taste. And almost everybody loves what we do. So don't come back. I mean, why is it that we don't just send a bad review. We also school because we're an authority. Somebody criticized one time we did an Alfredo, like a cashew Alfredo, and he goes, I've been to Italy. Okay, so because you've been to Italy, you're a 100% authority on Alfredo because there's no variation of that at all. And because you've been to Italy, then therefore you have the cred. And that's what we become as a culture because of social media. We think everybody should listen to us because we have a free Twitter account. And that's a problem for me. I'm not going to try to control it. I'm going to try to control myself. And with regard to how I am around it, and can I shut myself off from it?
All right. I actually.
By the way, it's my birthday today, Howie. So I don't want you, trying to, get all mad at me about this book. You've got to be kind to me. It's my birthday.
See, you do care what people think.
I do. I care about what you think. I care about what you think. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because I use I get the most ridiculous YouTube comments for when I put out videos. So somebody, this is going to be on YouTube, presumably. Someone's going to make an idiotic comment about it, and it's kind of like you have a section about hard work. Like for me, part of the hard work of my life is being okay with criticism. Like there is a trajectory where any sort of criticism or the fear of criticism or the fear of withheld approval has turned me into inside out. And so I actually use these comments to kind of as a meditation to kind of say, oh, like I'm okay. That person doesn't know what they're talking about, or maybe they do, and and maybe they're completely right, and I've done something offensive, and it's okay. Like it's part of being human. Like I got a wonderful comment a couple of weeks ago. I was on a Sentientist podcast, which is sort of a vegan atheist podcast, basically. And I agree with elements of both of those without necessarily, being card carrying. But I mentioned it's like one of the issues that concerned me was current capitalism and the way it affects our lives. So I got a comment where someone's like, "Oh, another silly socialist shill." Like, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Gee.
Yeah. You're going to be okay. Yeah. And I don't disagree with that at all, Howie. I'm not saying that. I actually appreciate your approach to that, like using it as a meditation. It's not like I'm immune to criticism. People criticize me. It's not like I'm immune to making mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. I got enough of that in my own personal life, in my own personal circles, in my own personal work. Mm-hmm. Personally, to keep myself open to the possibly millions, but not in my case, but because millions of people aren't watching my videos, but to that many random people became counterproductive for me. It wasn't that I think I'm perfect, because I certainly don't. It wasn't that I wanted to shut myself from criticism, because I certainly don't. But I wanted to regulate it, and I wanted to make it, like you said, more selective and more intentional and more thought-provoking, and not just like that. To me, I know you use that as a meditation. To me, I don't have any reason, or it doesn't benefit me to read some comment like that. It just doesn't. Yeah. It's a waste of my time. I would rather get back to work of doing something else that I want to do. And so it became a distraction. Social media became a distraction for me. I didn't want to even think about it. I didn't want to be on a run and run by something really beautiful and think that would make a good Instagram post. I wanted to get back to actually experiencing things and being involved in my life in that way. And that's why I made those moves. And they've been, like I said, really beneficial to me.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. All right, let's get into the truths. So the first one is basically you be the example in the world. So it's sort of I'm reading it as sort of an extended meditation on Gandhi's "Be the change you want to see." Why did you start with that one? Why did that one feel, whether the first one was the most fundamental or the one you wanted to sort of tenderize your audience with? Why about being the example was so important?
Well, I do think it's the first and foremost, and I want to be clear. Like, it's not, and I say this in the truth, by the way. It's not that somebody has to be perfect. It's that somebody is at least has that on their radar of trying to be an example. My second book's called Raising Healthy Parents, and it's exactly what this is about. I was on your show about it, but it's everybody, and again, this sweeps back into the comment culture thing. Everybody's telling everybody else what to do, and I think there's not enough focus on what you are doing yourself in that regard. And because there's two things that happen. One, if you're trying to be a better example, then you're moving towards something and you're improving and you're evolving as a person. That's amazing. But you're also realizing what the struggles are associated with trying to do your best and be the best version of yourself. How are you messaging? How are you communicating? How are you spreading your message out into the world? It's too quick to tell everybody else what everybody else is doing wrong. Now, by the way, I will also say, as a person, I also don't comment on anything. So it's not like I just shut myself from comments. If I don't like a book, I just don't read it and I don't talk about it to anybody. I mean, I stop reading it and I don't recommend it. I don't leave comments. I don't leave reviews at restaurants. If I have something that doesn't taste good to me, whoop-de-doo, I don't go back to the restaurant. I don't care and enough to spend a minute of my time commenting on that. And that's part of me in my effort to live an example for my kids, by the way, but also for my clients. And as I'm working with clients, I often reference myself, the struggles that I have. I just did an interview where I was talking about this 2 weeks ago. I was eating some jelly beans and I literally was like, can you please take this away from me? And I'm a nutritionist and it's hard to negotiate jelly beans because they're artificial and designed to make your head light on fire. And so, I have struggles to eat healthy. I have struggles to maintain productivity and to exercise. It's not easy. It doesn't come easy to me. So it's a better way for me to communicate that as an example not of perfection. It's easy. No, of imperfection, example of imperfection, of it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to struggle. Here's how I do it. Here's how I think you might benefit from doing it too. But my main focus, I've always said, over half of my job is trying to be the best version of myself I can be. By the way, a large part of my marriage of 26 years is working on myself separately from our marriage. And my wife does this too, so that when we are together, we are not resentful and having things hang over our shoulders. I'm taking care of myself. My wife takes care of herself. We do that so that the kids can see that you don't, relationship isn't putting yourself on hold. Those kinds of things are important to me. That is on my radar of what example am I living right now? What example am I being right now? I always want forever to think about that in my own life. So yeah, that is the cornerstone of the 6 truths. Everything else sweeps under that. It's all, is that part of what you are? Don't talk about anything until you are at least making a move to be the best example that you can be.
Right. Now you wrote this not just for, health coaches and podcasters. Like I get how, and you and I have both seen, we've been in behind the curtain at, health fests and the movement. And we know there's people who walk the talk and people who, whoops, that is,
that wasn't me.
That wasn't you. That is Elon, whom you know.
You know how I know that wasn't you? You know I know that wasn't me? Because that song sucks. You know what my alarm is? Whole Wide World by Reckless Eric. Have you ever heard that song?
No, I haven't. But do you think I'm going to listen to it after you insult my music? You have another thing coming.
Yeah, I know. I know. That was kind of a bad
This song is
culture.
19. Yeah, right. This is 1970s Israeli progressive folk rock.
That's exactly what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah. Sorry. Where was we? I have no idea. We're okay. Set the example. Right. So it's not just like, I can get how, like, for podcasters and health coaches and people who are in the business of being examples, how it's important for us to be examples. Because it's really easy for me to pose, right? Like I've done good things. I've succeeded at things. I have books. Like it's easy for me to hide behind a reputation and really phone it in. But how does this apply to, like, your readers, to ordinary people who aren't necessarily setting themselves up as, as role models or as part of their business?
Oh, yeah. No, this has nothing to do with people who are coaches. This is and podcasters. This book has everything to do with normal, regular people raising families, going to work, being in relationships. This was not this book, speaking to coaches or whatever, was not on my radar at all. This was people. This is a happiness manifesto. This is about regular, normal people being happy and healthy in their lives, and mostly happy. And therefore, health comes a little bit easier when you're know how to make yourself happy. So, yeah, no, it had nothing to do with coaches. This is about just living as an example in your own life, just period. Like, how do you like go to tell everybody else in your own personal life, family members, and you should do this. I mean, good Lord, like nutrition is a hilarious subject for me because it's so talked about by everybody who's not studied in nutrition. And by the way, many people who aren't even healthy have opinions about nutrition and are willing to just school everybody else on nutrition. I'm a nutritionist. There is a discussion of nutrition at my children's school that is flawed fundamentally, scientifically, research-wise. Nobody asks me, and I don't say anything because they don't ask me, but I'm the only guy here who's actually a nutritionist, but everybody's talking about feeding their kids dairy for healthy bones. And it's like, but by the way, they're also unhealthy. So it's like, I don't know if it's my age, and it could be. I'm 53 today. Did I mention that? But I have I'm getting a more keen bullshit detector as I get older. Like, I don't listen to people who I at least perceive, and they could be great, but if I do not have the perception that they are either trying or living an example, if I don't look at them and go, well, that they're doing it better than I am, or they're doing it pretty well, I will listen. If I don't have that perception, I walk, because it's, again, I don't want to waste the time. I got too much stuff that I want to do in my life and also be with my family. So it is for regular people. This is not for coaches. This is just normal people living their lives. Like, what kind of example are you in your personal life? Not because you're a coach to somebody, but obviously we trade ideas and we trade, advice. Are you doing it? How are you doing it for yourself first? That's how you know.
hmm And it reminds me a little bit of, like, Byron Katie has this concept of, whose business are you in, right? You're either in your
Interesting.
business or in other people's business or in God's business.
Hmm.
Because when you stop getting involved in other people's business, you actually discover that you don't have any business either. It's just
That's right.
like, just live your life and do your best.
And I also think that more people are influenced by who you are more than what you say. And so I definitely think that in the parenting realm, I think that parents, are better teachers as they develop themselves. And I always communicate my struggles with my kids. I communicate my fear with my kids. That not that they should be afraid of things, but that there are things I'm afraid of, and that how I negotiate those things. I want them to see the flaws and the imperfections in me, so that they don't grow up thinking that they're doing something wrong by being afraid of something. It's absolutely normal, and how you handle it is more a defining characteristic of who you are than that you feel fear in the first place. But yeah, it's whose business are you? It's a great question. Like I think you influence more people by setting a good example. You can tell somebody, organize your life, but if you're cluttered, they don't give a crap, because I would look at that person and go, fix your shit. Tell me how you got that done. If you can't get it done, why are you telling me how to get it done? Obviously, you don't know how to do it if you can't get it done yourself. And I just think it's become more and more true day to day as I get older.
Hmm. All right. So number two is basically have a thick skin, but not too thick, right? And you start off by sort of painting a picture of modern culture, that's like everyone gets a participation trophy,
Mm-hmm.
and helicopter parents. I've heard of snowplow parents, sort of like trying to
Yeah.
stop every problem and every issue. And I'm really interested in that, because I am so mixed in how I feel about the critique of a culture of safety. And I'm also thinking, there's a political element that gets sort of bolted onto this.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm curious about how to have this discussion in a way that doesn't politicize it.
It's hard not to politicize it, I guess, although I'm always coming at it from a philosophy back, that's my background and training in school, but it comes from that kind of angle. I say in the book, like, we need tougher, compassionate people. Oftentimes when you come from your life as a place of kindness, especially in, look, well, I don't usually talk about this too much, but being vegan, or if you're coming at it from a compassionate standpoint, an ethical standpoint, I think that can infect, and that's going to be a pejorative word, but you'll see where I'm going with this. I think that can affect and infect how you live and communicate. And it sometimes creates people who are a little too snowflakey, in my opinion, a little too sensitive and not tough enough. And I think for the changes that the world needs, there's definitely on one side, and this is where it's going to get kind of political, I guess, for people, but on one side of by digging your heels in that's what's tough. And I don't think that's tough. I think that's weak, to not be open to change and not to be open-minded. But that's why I say thicken your skin, but not too thick. Because if you get too thick, you're just digging your heels in, and you don't want to listen to anybody. And that's somehow, in this crazy world we live in, that's macho. And I think it's like the weakest standpoint you can be in. But there's also too thin too, where everything is setting you off. You're on attack for anybody who might make them. It's exhausting to walk on eggshells. Like, I'm afraid of everything I say because I'm going to get it. And it makes me make more mistakes. Like I just want to, I'm trying, like the new pronouns thing, I'm doing my best effort. But if I make a mistake and say a pronoun that somebody doesn't want me to say, and I'll say whatever they want me to say, it's fine. But if I make a mistake, I don't want to get attacked for it. I just want a little bit of compassion and understanding that I'm trying, recognize it. I'm doing the best I can. It's a new thing for people. This is all new for everybody. Let's see what we can do here. But it's become like very wide spectrums. It's like either you're digging your heels in and you're not open to anything and you're just screw you to the whole world, or you're so sensitive to everything that nothing is getting done. And I think that there's a little bit of squeezing that can be done, which is thinning these people, thickening these people, and everyone can kind of give everybody a little bit of a break.
Mm-hmm. How much of this do you think is new to our culture these days, or how much is just human nature we're just seeing it more because there's more, social media, more fast communication.
I think that's true. I think that it's probably part of human nature for a long, but I think that social media and our access to technology has exacerbated and sped up that transition very, very fast. And I think that it's like, Bill Maher was saying the other day, he got criticized by AOC for saying woke. And she's like, that's what old people say. And he goes, you just gave us that term like a few years ago. Give us a minute to move on. It's everybody's on attack all the time. And it's like, oh my gosh, just give us this, slow everything down just a little bit, And so I think the speed of change is really, really tough for everybody. This isn't just for people who are older. This is for all ages. Things are changing at lightning speed. And because of social media, because we have access to everybody in the whole world all at once today. And I think it's damaging. Have you seen the, I've been talking about this a lot because I think it's a brilliant piece of work. Have you seen Bo Burnham's special Inside on Netflix?
No.
You should watch it. It's incredible. It was very much of a commentary on social media and the effects of the digital world. He did the entire special in one room during COVID, so there's no audience. It's a comedy special, but it's actually really, really smart, brilliant, in my opinion. But anyways, and so it's really, really cool. So anyways, I recommend it. Yeah. So I think it's hurting our culture. I really do. I think that we need to toughen up a little bit, not be so sensitive about stuff so that we can negotiate the world a little bit better. I don't think that we would do well being, like I said, too thick or too thin.
Mm-hmm. And how much of this, and I'm asking this in terms of someone who works with individuals who are very often in pain, suffering, wounded, trying to heal themselves. How much of this do you think is informed by trauma? That, like it's easy for me to say, hey, toughen up, snowflake. And yet without knowing what their life is and what their internal nervous system state is and what they've been through, it kind of feels like I'm the last person in the world who should be, judging someone else's reaction to, an aggression, a microaggression, an injustice. And yet, at the same time, I'm like, what? If we want it to change, we have to be ready to fight for, or ignore it because it's not the most important thing. Getting to point number 5.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm completely with you. I mean, obviously it's an individual case by case basis, but there's certainly trauma out there for all of us. There's certainly things that inform how we react to things. But at the same time, I think that if you are in a state of, for whatever reason, so sensitive, you're not going to move forward in your life. And I think that for people who have trauma, that's when they get help, like psychological help or therapy or some supportive, even dietary change, obviously, and exercise and things that help people strengthen. It's not just me going, toughen up, snowflake. It's like, learn how to take care of yourself in a profound way. Not in a I'm attacking way, because that's the person who's too thick also. Everyone's on attack. But if you go, let me turn a little bit inward and try to, if I have trauma, address it and get help with regard to that, all in an effort to strengthen. Asking for help is a place of strength. That is not a weak place to say, listen, I had some trauma and I want to get help here. Why? Because I want to be stronger. I do want to toughen up. I do want to strengthen my skin and thicken my skin so that I can negotiate the world better and be kinder as in that way. And that's kind of how I come out about that. But yeah, the trauma exists. Of course it exists. But it's like, that's when you have to go, like, you don't just go toughen up. That's why the book is a philosophy book of like, what does it mean to be strong? I wanted to ask that question. Like, what is strength? Is it just being a thick skin and saying screw you to everybody? No, of course not. I think that's the opposite. I don't think strength is the same as anger. It's easy to yell. I think that strength is being very clear about who you are and being able to stand on principle, even when can be painful and even tough, really hard at times. And you learn how to do that over time by strengthening and thickening your skin.
Okay, now we come to truth number 3, which is social media ain't social. So I remember we were talking a couple of years ago, right after you had quit social media. And you were sort of leading edge. There's a lot of stuff that's come out now that the sort of the social dilemma and like the Facebook whistleblower, Um, what what made you want to get off social media? Like what was it doing that you saw as undesirable?
It was taking up an inordinate amount of mental real estate in my brain. And it was wrapped up in my own, again, personal goal, which is to be the best example that I can be. I felt creatively stunted. I felt fragmented. My brain, I was trying to write my second book, Raising Healthy Parents. I couldn't focus more than 5 minutes before jumping onto YouTube or Facebook or something. I was like, I literally was, and I use the word literally correct in this case. I literally went to my wife and said, I'm worried about my brain. I can't focus. I'm writing for 5 minutes and I'm on Facebook before I even know that I'm on Facebook. It was scary to me. I lost the ability to focus for periods of time. I didn't have that for my first book. I was able to write for extended period of times, pre-social media. What changed? After my first book came out, I joined Twitter and I joined Facebook and I joined Instagram and I joined Strava and I joined LinkedIn because everyone said, you got to join these things. And I felt my brain partition. I felt it get fragmented and scattered. And I didn't like it. I didn't like that feeling of lack of control. And again, like I'm a musician, I hadn't touched my guitar I was a full-time musician for years, and songwriting was my identity and did this. And then all of a sudden my guitar's in my case and never comes out. I'm not expressing anything creatively. And I thought, what would happen here? Now, as an example or just an experiment in my own life, I didn't say, well, I'll just limit it, which I could have done. And in the book, I'm like, limit it, like intermittent fast from social media. It's fine. I took it to the edge because of what I do for a living and how I coach people. I wanted to see what this was like. I wanted to see what it was like to actually delete these accounts, not just put them on hold, not just limit it, but actually delete all of them, which I did. Hand shaking when I deleted Facebook, like this. It was trembling when I hit the delete button. That's a weird thing like I thought, this is not good for me, just personally not good for me. Now, what I say in the book is my happiness went through the roof. I mean, in the year after I quit social media, I wrote an entire album's worth of music. I'm going to Los Angeles in a month to record a new album for the first time in 15 years with my band. It sparked juices flowing that had stopped. But my career took a hit. My new podcast has a fraction of the reach that my first show had. My books aren't selling like bestsellers. I don't have people beating down my door. I have a steady stream of clients, but they're not beating down my door. And so my career took a hit. My career took a hit because I turned myself off from that. My happiness went through the roof. My life is so much better without social media, without even thinking about social media. It's fantastic. I'm more creative in my YouTube videos. I'm more creative in my podcast. I'm really happy with 6 Truths. That was all done in the vacuum not vacuum, but in isolation from social media. And I believe there's an absolute causal relationship there.
Gotcha. Now, you just said you'd make YouTube videos, which is a social media platform. So what's the difference between being on social media and making YouTube videos?
Yeah, I at the time I quit social media, I didn't see YouTube as a social media company. People have since then said YouTube social media. It never was that for me. It was like me posting podcasts to iTunes. Like I don't think that podcasting is a social media platform. I don't think that iTunes is podcast is a social media platform. It's a place where I put my work up.
I see.
But I did shut down comments for that reason. I didn't want it to be a social thing. I wanted it to be a platform people can listen to. Now, I didn't shut down comments on my podcast. I don't look at them, but people can leave comments on my podcast. It wasn't for me that way. It was just a platform. It was like, people, look, I don't think Amazon's a social media company. I put a book out, people comment on it. So for me, I just didn't see it that way. I'm putting out work and it's a platform for me to do that. I will say there was a period of time where YouTube was not treating kids well and had weird algorithms and all sorts of stuff. And so I quit YouTube for a period of time, went over to Vimeo, again, lost a whole shit ton of people. And then when YouTube fixed their protocols, I went back onto YouTube. And so, but yeah, I was off for YouTube for about, I think 6 to 8 months. I was posting on Vimeo because they were knowingly being crappy. And that was another reason why I quit social media. I don't like the idea necessarily, but I also don't like those particular companies. And that's what's come to light since I quit, which is really what's going on here. Have you ever interviewed or talked to Cal Newport?
I haven't.
But you know who he is?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote Deep Work and he wrote Digital Minimalism.
Mm-hmm.
He has no social media either. And at the time I was writing my second book, I actually discovered Cal Newport while I was being distracted on YouTube. And he came up and I saw that video and I was like, holy crap, that guy has best-selling book. I don't have bestseller books, but he has best-selling book, no social media. I thought, what the hell? What's that all about? Read his book. And that was another inspiration for me to say, like, can I get this done? I can always get back on. But what would happen if I got off and I have zero desire to get back on? I have never thought, God, I kind of want to get, not one time, only because people say, well, if you're on social media, you'd be able to promote your blah, blah, blah. But I've never personally wanted to get back on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing I've done around that is when I've taught courses, the easiest way to support the course is a Facebook group, right? A private secret Facebook group. And I refused to do that because I don't want someone to say, well, I guess I better get on Facebook if I want to participate in this. So I pay money for, but so like one of the things I worry about, like I do use social media to promote my business. And I think I'm pretty good at not being like, I don't do the endless scrolling. I find Instagram boring. Yeah. Facebook, there's actually a few people that I sort of stay in touch with. I post objectionable articles that they object to, and then we have a fun discussion about it. Yeah. But I do feel like I feel a little bad that I'm contributing to the success of the platform.
Well, look, I mean, that is the reason why I'm not on it at all. So I got off it for personal reasons. But since then, people said, you can just set up an account and then do ads. And that is the reason I don't do those, is because I do not think that company is a good company. And I don't want to support that company, much like I don't eat meat, because I don't want to support that whole rigmarole either. It is very much of an ethical decision for me that, again, is making me suffer financially. But it's sort of like, that's why Six Truths is what Six Truths is, which is like, there's happiness to be had in these kinds of moves. So that's just for people to figure out for themselves. For me, it was a very clear decision. It was like, I don't want to support that asshole. I'm sorry. I just don't want to. I don't like the company. I don't like what they're doing to kids. I don't like the whole algorithm. I don't like what it does to human beings in general. And so it was just, what that was. I remember when Matt Frazier and I co-authored a No Meat Athlete. It was called Health Made Simple, which he, they've since canned it and did a fancier one. But anyways, it was very successful for its time. But he did a Facebook group at that time, and I wasn't involved. And he said, we'll do a Facebook group. And there was a celebrity chef and who had members that joined Health Made Simple. And all of a sudden, it was this vitriol and how things weren't compliant and all this. And I was like, this is why I hate this stuff. Don't sign up for it. I mean, can we just don't do it? We will give you your money back. But why the vitriol and the anger and the this and the that? Like, I commend you. You put an article on Facebook and you get into it with people. I have no desire to do that. To me, I don't want it. I don't like it. Yeah. I've had clients with digestive issues that want me to fix their diets, but they're on Facebook 5 hours a day. And I'm going, the stress of what you are doing is making you have digestive issues. You're eating quite a good diet, actually. And so it's like, it is taking people down. And by the way, too, at the time I wrote Six Truths, one of the leading causes of death, and I think it's still true, of kids 10 to 19 in this country is suicide. Yeah. And there is a component of that, which is social media, which is social isolation. That's why I said social media ain't social. It seems social, but it's not social in the way that we're designed as human beings to be interactive in a more limited fashion, not exposed to hundreds, thousands, and if not millions of people all at once. And I think it's hard for our brains to deal with.
Yeah. And in these discussions, they are not open to everyone, right? Like the minute someone posts, like, this is my living room, like you can come in, I've invited you in, let's talk about it. Yeah. But if you sort of like barge down the door and tell me that I'm wrong and stupid, like you're not welcome here. Yeah. But there's, what we've learned about the algorithm, right? Which is basically AI, we're worried about AI one day controlling us. Well, AI controls us already. Oh yeah. Right. Like the AI algorithms on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, are promoting antisocial behavior for monetary gain, eyeballs and impressions and engagement.
And fostering anger, because they know that people click on angry things more than they click on positive things. They look. I did a podcast episode a couple years ago that this is the price we pay for wanting everything for free. I mean, these companies want to make money. They know exactly how to do it. And as soon as we go, I don't want to pay for anything. Well, they're going to go, well, we got to make money. So let me funnel people on YouTube to younger and younger girls, because that will keep the clickbaits coming. It's like, that's what we get when we want stuff for free. We demand it for free and we're paying the price for it as a result. And so again, it's not a model I wanted to be involved in.
Right. And also there's, billions of Facebook accounts, and Facebook doesn't make that much money per account. Like if they said, like, we won't keep a track of any of your data. We're just going to have this wonderful service where you can connect with people. It's $100 a year. A lot of people would say yes.
Maybe
enough.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that, I mean, if you have billions of followers and everybody's paying that's how Netflix makes multi-millions of dollars, is because of people who subscribe. They would do quite well financially. It's that it is free. And then they go, how do we get people to stay on here as much as possible? Well, let's drip out the likes. That was their first kind of deal. And Facebook was always great of saying, we're just the platform, man. But they were involved in headlines and, changing the nature of posts to make sure that it was more attractive to people. It was very intentional. I've heard podcasts of people that were consulting Zuckerberg early on and saying, this is kind of shitty. And he was like, yeah, I know. It's like, it was just such a intentional thing of like, how do I get people to stay on this thing and become addicted to it, frankly. And I felt that addiction. I felt it very, very much in my own head. And I didn't like the way it felt. It would be like if I were, drinking every night and all of a sudden I was like, I think I have to have a drink. Well, that it is a concern to me, and so I don't want to feel that way. And I was feeling that way about that stuff.
Mm-hmm. All right. Can we go to number 4?
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So this one, you said, like, basically it's about hard work. And I had a kind of a revelation around this maybe a year ago. I was working with a group of people. I was, doing health coaching, and people were not making progress. And so naturally, when that happens, I look at myself and I go, what am I not giving them? How am I enabling it? And what I realized was that I'm such a compassionate person that somehow I had forgotten to remind them that this is hard work.
Yeah.
And that if you want success, you have to work hard. And it's so like, everybody, here's the weird thing, like everybody kind of knows this in some aspect of their life. Like, it's not like we live in a society that tells people don't work hard, but we don't apply it very broadly.
Absolutely true. Yeah. I mean, I always tell people that do my small steppers program, like, I don't sell easy. I sell easier. I think my approach makes it easier because they teach people how to manage their stress around activities to make them be able to turn into habits. But it's hard work. It's like, we get it. We kind of get it. But here's the problem. Again, I'm going to come back to, I'll sound like a little bit of a broken record, but in this information age and these access via our phones and devices to information of any kind, we can know that and be able to distract ourselves from that truth. So the knowledge of, if I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to have to take time and actually change my whole lifestyle and actually become somebody who eats healthy most days. We sort of cerebrally, prefrontal cortex understand that. And then right on through, social media is a diet that says, don't worry about that. Just listen, do what I tell you, 10 pounds in 21 days. And we go, oh, thank God. Because that other thing of thinking is a nightmare. I don't want to do thinking. And I don't want to do things that's going to take me a year because I'm 50 and I've been eating really crappy for 50 years. I want this undone in 21 days. That's reasonable for me. And so that's the thing here. We don't want an inordinate amount of stress in our lives. We don't want that. And the capitalizing on that desire to not be super stressed and to not work super hard is a moneymaker for people, not me, but because I don't play that game. But that's what that is. And so they go, here's what you do. This doesn't take hard work. But as a responsible coach, what you are saying is, listen, it's hard work. And I sell it as a good thing, because when you get gains, you earned them. They are real. You've taken the time. They feel amazing. They are the best things ever. A successful marriage is phenomenal. A successful marriage is deep and it's not without fraught and struggle, but it takes time, it takes energy, and it takes hard work. You cannot have a successful marriage without hard work. You can't be a successful parent without hard work. So it's like we understand that, but then we get into these routines where we're sort of shutting ourselves off from that hard work, and we're seeing the effects of that on our stress, on our disease rates, on our lifestyles, on our quality of life. And when you shut yourself off from the reality that it takes hard work to get a happy life and a healthy life in, if you open yourself up to that, you're killing it. If you don't, you're not. And that was, again, part of that book is like, listen, take this pill, man, swallow this jagged pill. It's going to be a little bit brutal. Good, because when you get there, you're going to earn it, and you'll feel really, really good for the work that you put in to get there.
Right. And at the same time, especially with the last 2 years of pandemic in the rearview mirror, like you're saying, like these companies, and these industries want to tell us, hey, just take it easy. We'll sell you the next thing. At the same time, they're also like the fact that it's not going to work is going to increase our stress, which makes us better consumers right? Like the more stress we're under, the harder our lives are. The more people are worried about income, about community, about politics, about fear. The more we are fearful and fragmented, the harder it is to follow your advice and say, like, let's do hard work. Because like the last thing I want to do is make my life harder.
Yeah, it's funny. I talk about this in the book, but there's stress of living, but then there's the stress that we put on ourselves to either avoid that stress or to build ourselves up to be afraid of that stress. And we end up compounding the amount of stress that we're under because we're so anxious about the hard work. If we just said, this is going to suck ass. I do cold therapy every day. I've been doing it for 4 years. I just bought a few months ago a cold plunge tub that is 39 degrees, and I get in every day. I'm going to do it after this.
Send me the link to that?
I will. I love it.
I'm using an ice bucket, and I have a tub in the backyard that gets really grody.
This thing's killing it. It's got a filter. It saves water. That was my thing. we're in a drought in California. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like I take a shower. I would do a cold shower every day. Like most people shower every day, but I was like, I don't do anything. Obviously, I don't shampoo, but I just would go in for the cold of it. I thought, and it wasn't as cold as I wanted to get it. So in the 50s, because I live in Northern California, but this thing's 39 degrees. It is not screwing around. And so anyways, but my point is I get in every day. And every day I have dread around it. Every day I go, I don't want to do this. There's not been a single day, not once in 4 years since July 15th of 2017. I've done it every single day with the exception of one single day over the summer where I just forgot. I was busy and my back was bothering me. And I just like, oh my God, I didn't do it one day. That's weird. But anyways, every day, 100% of times I have thought, I don't want to do this right now. I've never thought, I cannot wait to get into that cold. Not once. And I get to play that game every day, the mental training of that game, which is at some point a switch goes off and I go, I'm doing this. And my stress goes down. I accept the reality that's going to be uncomfortable. And then the overall experience ends up being positive. It's all the buildup of knowing this is going to suck that is worse than the sucking of itself. And I like that 5-minute time in that tub where I transition from the uncomfortable of it to getting used to it, to getting out and being happy 100% of times. Because 100% of times I've dreaded it, but 100% of times I've been happy that I did it. And that's just that little micro battle that helps me negotiate the hard work of life, which is it's going to be hard. When I can be in a place where I can accept that and take it on, then I'm not adding stress of trying to avoid it. I'm just accepting it and doing it. We had so much stress to avoid the stress that if we just accepted the work that's done and necessary, we'd be in overall lower stress state because we wouldn't have stress upon stress.
Yeah, I do the ice bucket, which is the same thing. Like it's the first. I'll meditate and then do the ice bucket.
That's what I do. Essentially, yeah.
And every day I have another set of like my brain is telling me why I shouldn't do it today.
Oh, I've organized countertops in an effort not to get into the cold plunge. I better organize this countertop.
Here's what I figured out is at some point, the moment I convince myself not to is when I have to go do it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I'm working on a new book and I just was writing about that thing of They say it's best time to meditate is when your mind is on fire. I think the best time, I just did a 3-day water fast. Oh, that's right. I talked about it on my podcast. I just did a 3-day water fast. And I think it was the best time for me to do it because holidays, usually when I'm like, whatever, and I was like not feeling that good and I started not sleeping that well and I was eating too much. And I thought, this is the right time. So I think it's exactly those sort of like we're swaying a little too wide here. And we intentionally and consciously, not for restriction, not for beating ourselves up, but to recheck and to reground. And that's that little moment I have every day. So do you have like is it electric or do you actually get ice out of the freezer and put it in the freaking bucket and load it up every day?
No, I let nature do it. I just fill the bucket at night.
Okay.
And,
I see.
In the morning, there's ice on it, and
because you just live in cold. So in the summer, that wouldn't happen.
Right. In this, yeah, and so I do like whatever the ambient temperature is in the morning.
I see.
And so it's actually interesting that when I would most welcome the ice, it's not that cold. But then right. There'll be a morning like it'll be in the 70s, and then it'll be in the 40s one morning. And I'm like, yeah, I got to do it anyway.
Well, I've gotten in recently in 39-degree weather outside, and the tub's 40. It's about the same, or like in a rainstorm, sit in a cold tub during a rainstorm. That's a whole nother world, and those are just to me little exercises, of mental toughness. Trying to again thicken my skin, to kind of like accept what that challenge is, and then just kind of focus, calm myself, and just I'm doing this. It's gonna happen. Get in. Feel good, get out, feel good after I get out and move on with my day. And it's been really, really rewarding in that regard. There's physical benefits to cold plunge, and that's fine. But to me, it has been way more of a mental benefit than it has physical over the years I've been doing it.
Yeah, I was just listening. I don't know if you listened to Andrew Huberman's podcast, the Huberman Lab.
I know of him because so he has the exact model I have. He has the cold plunge. He's on their website. I'm not connected to them. Anybody listening to this, I'm not. There's no affiliate, no nothing.
Okay.
But if you go to the cold plunge, he's like the one who gives them the protocols. It's that guy. So he has the exact tub I have.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So he was talking recently about stress and fear and some research that we become much less reactive to stressors in our lives when we proactively chase stress on our own terms.
Correct. Hormetic stress.
Right. It's not just that it's the stress that is hormetic. It's our relationship to it. That if I put myself in this position, then that tells my body at some deep level that I can handle it.
That's correct. Yeah, and the only reason I say hormetic is because it's a short-term burst enough where it's not consistent and long to actually weaken us. But yeah, it's an intent. But you're right. You can have hormetic stress that isn't in that same vein. But yeah, when you actually say I'm doing this and you calm yourself down, and I'm sure you don't either. That's why you meditate first. I do a series of breathing exercises, and I'm an Oxygen Advantage breathing instructor. I've done that over the last year and coaching people now in breathing, which I love. So I get into my breath, and I don't get in going, oh my God, this is going to suck. By the time I get in that tub, I am resigned to what is going to happen. And I'm actually able to, I think it's very cool. I feel it more. I don't try to avoid the cold. I don't go, I got to make sure I'm super hot when I get in. I actually feel it. Yeah. And I realize it's actually doable. I'm able to do this. And I think that is helping me mentally in other parts of my life.
All right. I want to pick up on one thing that you said almost as an aside, which I found really interesting, was that one day you didn't cold plunge. You just forgot. I have been meditating twice a day since April 12th, 2019. And part of me lives in terror of the day that I forget to do it. Like there's a story in my head, like if I ever forget, like that will be the end, like that will sort of crumble the edifice. And I'm really curious about the day after you skipped your plunge, whether any of that was going through your head, whether. Oh,
totally. Yeah, two things happened. So I had torn my TFL, my tensor fascia latae. I pushed it too hard, and I was doing like heavy lifting, and it was whatever around the house. There was some events at the resort. All of a sudden, I woke up one morning and I like couldn't stand up straight, and I've never had back trouble in my life, and for 6 days I couldn't stand up straight. It was scared the shit out of me. So I'm back into strength training and kind of taking it easy and all those kinds of. I'm fine. I've been running. I'm training for my own race and all this kinds of stuff. But it was in that 1 6 day where I was really feeling it. And I was doing cold therapy because I do it every day. And I didn't have the plunge at this point. I was doing in the shower, laying in the bottom of the tub. It was ridiculous. But anyways, but it felt good. And so there was just one day where I woke up and I was like going about my day and I was like, I do my cold therapy. And I went, wait a second. I didn't do my cold. I mean, this is within the last 3 months. I'm not even kidding. So over 4 years of actual every day, never missed a day. I missed a day. And it wasn't because I was too busy. I just slipped my mind. And so there's the duality of our crazy human brain. One side of me, I go, okay, so I missed a day. The other side of me, okay, so maybe I do 2 today, and then I can still tell people that I've done it every day. Maybe there's a way is there a way I can fix? I'm like, what is happening to me? Am I that guy who has to be the everyday person? So I have a history of militancy that I have done very good work, I have to say. My wife will agree, where I have loosened myself. I still hear that messaging, but I don't act on it. I'm the guy who's like in the cold tub and I go, I got to get to 6 minutes and sometimes I purposely will stop early just because I don't want to, I see where that's going. And I've actually been injured years ago as a runner because I ran on a day that I shouldn't have run. I was exhausted and I was cold and I was underslept and I was over-caffeinated, and the training plan said, run this on this day. And I was disconnected and I ruptured my Achilles tendon. And I was like, this is the stupidest thing, because a piece of paper that doesn't know who I am says I'm supposed to run, so I got to run. So it's been again, these are the struggles that I'm under, that I'm clear about who I am deep down. I'm not a guy who's tied to those kinds of things, who can take a day off. And so it was good. It was actually like really a good day. I was like, that's kind of cool. It wasn't for any reason other. I just kind of forgot. And then I was like, I forgot. And I talked about it on my podcast. I was like, I missed a day. That's good. That's a good thing. It's not going to hurt me. It's going to be fine. The reason why I do it most days is because it's 5 minutes, and sometimes I've had days where I go, and I go, it's 5 minutes. It's always been that like, it's 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes. People take showers every day. I do a cold shower. It was no more time out of my day than anybody else takes. So that's the reason why it's been easy for me to do. Frankly, meditating twice a day, I don't even know if I could pull that off. Like, that's a feat more than I think the 5 minutes of cold plunge that I do. If you're doing something like TM, you're probably doing 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's 20 minutes twice a day.
Yeah, that's massive. My cold plunge is nothing like that. I get into a tub for 5 minutes and I get out, my body is bright red, and when I dry off and I go to work, so it hasn't been hard to do that every day, but it was actually kind of fun in retrospect to miss a day and hear the mental chatter of, how do I fix this in the world? I don't want to lie about it, but if I do 2 in one day, maybe I can just say I have averaged one time. I was like, oh, gosh, shut up. I said to myself, shut up.
The part of you that was addicted to social media is still chattering.
That's right. Exactly. And I was like, shut up. That's not who you are. What your voices that you're hearing right now is not who you are. Shut up. And then I went the other side and got on my podcast immediately. I was like, I missed a day, because I'm like, that's who I am. I'm okay to miss a day. It's going to be all right.
Right. And I'll tell you, so I mentioned I've been meditating now 2.5 years. It was 2 days ago, for the first time, that I had the realization that I could, I basically have been meditating wishing it would be over. Like, I'm doing this, it's good for me. It's basically like you ever do yoga where you're just holding horrible poses and you're like, oh yeah, is the hour up yet? And that has been my approach to meditation. And I've read Bliss More and I've done all these different things. But like 2 days ago was the first time I thought, you know what? This actually feels wonderful.
Nice.
Nice. Like, it feels very luxurious. Like, one thing Josh LaJaunie taught me was always return your cart at the supermarket. Like, don't just push it up on the bank. Like, walk it back as an act of generosity and gratitude. And so now every time I do that, it's taking time out of my day. I got to get moving. But it'll take maybe 2-3 minutes. And I do that walk is like a gratitude meditation for legs.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. Great.
And I realized it's taken me this long to kind of recognize that, meditation is something that I can do for joy and not just because it's good for me and it hurts.
Yeah, because it said so in a book and you got to get through it. Exactly. And I think that it takes time to get connected to our actions in that way. I think we discover that. Again, that's why I'm such a proponent of solitude and moments of solitude, time of solitude, of silence and meditative. Meditate in a cold plunge tub. Meditate in a cold shower. That's meditation.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy enough to sit on a pillow in a nice warm home. But when you're in 39-degree weather and you can still come into your breath and quiet your mind, that is some serious shit. And I love it. That's why for me, it's been way more mental than anything else, because it's enabled me this. That's why I ultra run. I'm a horrible runner. I've never been a good runner. I'm not a good runner, never will be a good runner, but I ultra run. And not because I've got a talent, but because I also that whole struggle appeals to me on that level as well. Not because I'm a glutton for punishment, but I like putting myself into a situation where I am broken down a little bit, where some of the noise is torn away and I can exist in a little bit more of a quiet state. And I think it takes effort to do that. I don't think that the world is going to hand those things. At least it doesn't to me. You have to grab those things. And that's been very valuable for me as a human being.
Yeah. Which also, I think speaks to the definition of hard work, which is like, I'm curious what it is for you. Cause I think of lots of work that I do that other people would think of as hard work that I think of as fun or playful. Like what, mm-hmm. When you say like, do the hard work, what defines that for you?
It's present and aware. I think more than anything else. I think diets, I'll use diet as an example, but, when people go on a diet, it is work. You got the recipe list and you got the recipes and you got the this and the that. But to me, that's not hard work. That's a distraction from hard work, which is the mantra I've been using for a few years, which is mind first, body second. Before you do an act one of changing your diet, think, get clear on who you are, what you actually want to do in your life. That's hard work to me. The hard work of being in a relationship where you realize, oh, I have been acting shitty. That's hard work. Like that's hard work. Realizing you've made mistakes, learning how to admit mistakes. I've been horrible about admitting mistakes. I'm getting better about it. I'm doing the work of just no effort of trying to cover it. Just going, I screwed that up. And it feels very liberating, but it's taken me years to get to that point where I can even do that. I'm not perfect yet. Not even never. I never will be, but I'm trying. I'm recognizing that that's a thing in me that if I just go, I screwed up, that the world isn't going to collapse around me. And that if I take a bunch of effort to get out of it, I'm causing myself more stress and I'm being a worse human being as a result of that. Again, living the example, et cetera, et cetera. But that's what that is. That's the hard work for me, mm-hmm. is the thinking of it, is being present in that work. Now, there's also a very logistical, mundane kind of hard work, which is writing a book. We love the idea of being a writer. It's very romantic. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to work for 8 hours. Well, you know better than I do, because you've written way more than I have, that when you actually get to the nuts and bolts of sitting down in front of your computer, it's not pleasurable. When you're working at 1 a.m. and you're on a deadline and you're trying to keep yourself focused and your freaking eyes are, that's the hard work. That's what it takes. And I talk about, I lived in LA for 20 years and coffee houses were full of screenwriters who never wrote screenplays. Everybody who loves the idea of who they are without actually doing the hard work of it. And that's where the happiness exists, I believe, not in how you see yourself, but what you are doing as a person. What are you actually producing? And that's, again, it all tied in, that whole book. But me shutting myself off from these things allowed me to get more productive and more in touch with the hard work of living a good life, being productive, writing songs, writing my books, working on podcasts, improving my skills in my personal life and all these kinds of things. It was all part of that. So that's, to me, the hard work of it. Also, it's action. It's doing things mm-hmm. more than it is saying things.
So for me, if I want to translate that chapter, I think of it as hard work is being willing to tolerate unpleasant feelings, sensations, emotions.
Discomfort. Being more comfortable with discomfort. Mm-hmm. Not trying to make it go away. Accepting it and managing through it. Fear, anxiety, stress. Learning how to negotiate those things. Learning how to accept that they are part of living in an ever more crazy world, but doing it better because you accept it and are willing to wade through that. And I think that has definitely paid off for me. But, a lot of this book was inspired by my client work, learning clients who've come to me after yo-yo diets because they want the change, but they don't want to do the real work of the change. And them having them have that light go off. I call it the Matrix moment from the movie. He finally sees everything digital. There's a moment in my client work with most clients where the light switch goes off and they say, holy crap, this is what this is about. That sometimes I'm going to eat something that's pretty good, but it's not that good. And I don't care because I know that it delivers me the health and happiness I want, and that I also will have a treat on Saturday night. But tonight I'm going to eat something that's not so good. It's good enough. And that's a whole nother world of joy. That is a whole nother world of, like people go, the Impossible Burger, I don't really like it. It doesn't taste exactly like beef. I go, who gives a crap? Like, first of all, it's junk food. But second of all, is it good enough? What, are you eating something that's good enough? Is it horrible, or is it just sort of not as great? Well, because if it's super great that you got to have all the time, you're looking for a drug, basically. And I think you're probably shutting yourself off from an experience of life that is full, which means the good and the bad. So again, it's that negotiation. It's okay. You're going to be fine. And when you realize that, and through my small steps approach, I'm easing people into this, but all of a sudden they see what they can do. Then they're able to do it themselves. They realize the strength has been in them all the time, and that having a salad at night, one night as a test, sometimes I do that. I go, have a salad. You curse my name, scream at me, swear at me how miserable you are. Not one of them has ever said it was miserable. They go, it wasn't too bad. But they've just never tested the waters. They're like, it wasn't that bad. And it made them present and aware around food, and they were able to enjoy their spouse's company for once because they weren't distracting themselves, that whole picture. So the hard work of this is the attention of this for sure.
Right. And and I've had, interpersonal experiences that were so intolerable that I avoided them for decades. And then when they happened, I was like, oh, that wasn't that bad.
I know how much we push off a discussion. We will cause ourselves stress for years, even though in 5 minutes that discussion could have been resolved and we could have moved on. And probably there's a misunderstanding there too, but we don't even get to that point. And I get it, been there, but it never serves us that well. So if we can teach ourselves to sort of get in that cold plunge, figuratively, get it done, then we usually come out the other side better off for it.
All right. Well, we've been talking for over an hour. You are 53 today, so you absolutely need to go and have fun and celebrate and do lots of fun, hard work.
Or in my case, go to work.
So I think we're going to leave people with truths 5 and 6 to find out for themselves. The book is 6 Truths. I assume it's available not just on Amazon, but do you sell it on your website, or can people order it from?
It's published, so it's in. I mean, it's distributed by Ingram, by Publishers Group West. It's Ingram, and so it's out and about. If it's not in your store, they can order it or whatever. But yeah, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Powell's. I mean, I have probably 5 copies in my house, but you could always email me if you want a copy. But anyways, yeah, it's out and about. All right, and
it's the I would say it's the cold plunge of philosophy books. That's correct. It's going to tell you things that are going to be very helpful. That they're not easy truths.
That's right. They're not easy. This isn't easy. What we're doing is to live. If you want to live a good life, it's not easy. It's easy to shut yourself off. I get it, but it's not easy to live a good life. But the reward is huge, and it's huge. But you just got to, at some point, and I'm grappling with myself, accept that truth that it is hard work.
Right. Yeah. And part of number one of being the example is to recognize that, I'm imagining you wrote this book for yourself as much as for anybody else.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I try to live, most of my job is trying to practice what I preach, because I don't want to be the guy who goes, you should do this, and I'm going to go fly on first class, whatever. I want to be boots on the ground and see, communicate those struggles that I have, because they're very, very real.
All right, cool. How can people find you if they want to learn more, get coached, beat down your door?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the first thing you can do is if they want to find out more about my approach, they can go to smallsteppers.com. There's a free 6-part video series that will then lead them, if they want, to my 12-week online program, which is phenomenal. And I do live Q&As, and it's super fun. But some people want a more one-on-one deal. So you can go to smallstepintensive.com, and you can even have sign up for a 15-minute free talk with me to find out the details of what that 12 weeks, it's 12 weeks, but it's day to day, literally day to day, every single day during the 12 weeks, in touch with me as a coach. smallstepintensive.com, or sidgarzahillman.com is a good portal to my YouTube channel, my podcast, and things like that.
Excellent. All right. All those will go in the show notes.
Cool.
Anything you want to say that I haven't asked about?
No, I called you Howie twice in the podcast. I feel like that was a big thing that I did today by staying aware. And it's always good to see you. I tell the story. Do we have time for me to tell like a 2-minute story?
I got time.
Do you remember when I first met you in person was in Texas?
Yes.
We were at the Marshall Veg Fest and we were on a panel. And this is when I began to, I always liked you in our interactions, but I was like, Howie's my dude. Now I called you Howard at the time because I hadn't evolved yet, but that was
neither had
Howard.
Neither had I.
Right. And so, exactly. So we're sitting next to each other and there's a crowd of people. It's like 300 people. And we're on this panel with a few people. And somebody in the crowd said, "What is your opinion about red wine?" And the celebrity chef was there, grabbed the microphone, and she said, "Never touch red wine. Never drink wine. Ever, ever, ever." And this doctor behind us grabbed the microphone and said something like, and I'm not even exaggerating, a study just showed that a glass of red wine a week or a month raises your risk of breast cancer by 30%. Some crazy thing, right? And I lean over to you and I go, "Well, what the hell were those people eating in that study?" That was my first red flag. You grabbed the microphone and you said, "What's interesting about pretty much every blue zone in the entire world is that they all drink alcohol." And it was just this great mic drop moment of like how crazy we are becoming that you are scaring the shit out of somebody to drink a glass of red wine a month. And you were just like, yeah, every blue zone drinks. And it was like this moment where I was already deep in my work of small steppers and really stressed. And I realized this is about stress more than it is about anything else, because the people who are living the longest they're not drinking all day, but they're having a glass of wine and they're enjoying themselves. And it was just this great, like you were just, because you're so understated, you're just like, yeah, but every blue zone drinks. And there was just this, nobody could say anything. And it was just like, oh, that's absolutely paradise. Right. So I tell that story all the time.
I've forgotten that. But, it's funny because I can also see ways in which I have been dogmatic and doctrinaire in my teaching. And the more I learn, the less I know.
Well, it's interesting when you hear interviews of people who are in their hundreds, 110. They always, if you expect them to say, "Well, I just eat sprouts and kernels of pumpkin seeds," but they're always like, "I drink beer, they're never that." And I've really, that's why I wrote 6 Truths, by the way, because it's not a health book, it's a happiness book. I think that ultimately it's about managing our stress and keeping ourselves happy. And then under that umbrella, it makes it a little easier to treat ourselves well in how we eat most times and how we exercise and everything else. But it's happiness. And I idealize, and it could be wrong, but my perception is that these people have somehow forged a life where they're able to recover from stress and deal with stress better than some other people. And you can have a very healthy diet and be very stressed about food. And I think that that's, I'm kind of seeing that more and more. So it was just this great moment where you're like, we could also just calm down about this and have fun and eat well most of the time and have a glass of red wine with your friends and not worry about it so much. And I thought that's really cool. So,
well, yep. We have, we've reached out to each other for sanity checks.
I think we've done that. I think it's exactly what we've done. Sanity checks is exactly right. Yeah. So,
all right. Well, thank you so much. It's, the book is such a great reminder for me. And there's definitely parts in there that challenged me and that I wanted to argue, but since it's your 53rd, I'm, decided to, and it's okay. Right. Debate on, your point about social media. It's okay to read things that I don't 100%, agree with all the time. That's right. That's another form of mental discipline.
And not only that, Howie, but I would love to have you, like, you would be somebody who I would love to hear and get into a debate about. Like, I would love, you're somebody I highly respect and is more intelligent than I am. And I would love to hear that, so it's not like I'm opposed. I just want to get into it when it's substantial and real rather than a throwaway comment because somebody had their fingers on a keyboard. This is what I love. I love the back and forth, the real substantial back and forth about this. And so I'm happy to have you go, "This sucked," and then we can have a talk about it. And it's fun and it's light and we're thick enough skin where we can listen and communicate and have fun with it. And that's really, really cool. And I'm just trying to foster more of that in my life on a personal level even.
Yeah, well, I mean, just from my perspective, I read books by people I disagree with.
That's right.
And, like one of the ways I'll drive myself crazy is I will, read an article by Ibram Kendi and then an article by John McWhorter about race. And I'll go, God, I agree with both of them, 100%. And they totally disagree with each other. Like,
yeah, that's super cool. Yeah.
Have you read, one of the things this book reminded me of, do you know Jesse Singal?
I don't.
He wrote a book called The Quick Fix about lots of sort of social science solutions that get, thrown at much bigger problems, like, implicit bias testing. I don't have the book off the top of my head, but just, chapter after chapter about ways in which we're trying to solve, like feel good, pop psychology, stuff like that, and I read his, he has a Substack that I read, and I just generally just don't like his, like I don't like him, like from,
yeah.
And I think he's wrong about a lot of stuff. And I really value having those inputs in my life and noticing where I'm prickly. Yeah. Right. Where the monster in me that thinks I'm better than somebody else gets to arise, and observe that.
Right. And now here's my question to you. Do you feel the need when you disagree with him to go on his platform and say, I disagree with you? See, because my point is that's how I want people to see my videos. I want them to go, that's ridiculous. I totally disagree, and walk away from that with that knowledge about themselves and about how, and allow that to affect what they do.
Yeah.
And so that's why
my urge is to get him on the podcast and
or that, which is cool too. But you don't go, and that's dump my thoughts because I'm uncomfortable that I didn't like something. That's my point, is your drive is to go, where am I prickly here? Like, I want to open myself to other ideas and know what I stand for, what I don't agree with, or maybe change my mind about something I thought I didn't agree with. That's excellent. That's amazing. And I think every time you just dump a comment is a waste of time that you could be better spending doing that internal work.
Yes.
And then having the guy on your podcast. Yeah. It's super cool.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is like the urge to do those comments is the same as the urge to eat junk food or watch porn.
Exactly.
It's a way to self-manage.
That's right.
To self-soothe.
Exactly what that is. If I can tell somebody how they should do it wrong and they're wrong and they should do it this way. A couple times in the years before I turned off comments, somebody would say, you should do this on your video. And for a couple times I went to their channel, 0 videos. So a couple times I wrote a comment to them and said, you know what? Why don't you, obviously you've got a good handle on this and you can do this better than I can. Do your own videos and let me know when you do. And I'd love to see them. Never a response, because they're full of crap. Go get the work done yourself. See how hard it is to do a video. Put yourself out in the world and open yourself up to criticism. Then come talk to me about how I can do things better. And that was really the beginning where I thought, this is not a good model of positivity. This is not going to help anybody grow.
Right on.
So,
all right. I think let's wrap there. So since this is your first time on Riverside, I should tell you that we have to keep the page open until you see the confetti come down.
Very exciting.
On
my birthday.
It will tell you
Perfect.
you are fully uploaded. You're in the cloud now.
Excellent. Great. Good. Now, good. So I'll just hit leave studio and then I'll just leave the browser open.
That's it. I believe.
Cool. Well, so great seeing you. And thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for your patience while I stopped snoozing and woke up to your book.
Yeah, no worries. At least you got there. No, it was good to hear from you. Thanks.
All right. Take care, Sid. Show notes with a lovely photo of Sid Garza-Hillman and a link to buy his book, 6 Truths, and his other books at plantyourself.com/507. Again, no new news, so let's go right to thanks. All right, time for thanks. Thanks to Will Ridenauer for allowing me to use his beautiful song Sabali Dawn, The Dance of Peace. You can find more of Will's music at his website, willridenauer.com. And of course, thanks to all of you Plant Yourself podcast patrons. Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Brittany Porter, Dominic Maurer, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hatherley, Mary Jane Wheeler, Ellen Kennelly, Melissa Cobb, Rachel Behrens, Tina Scharf, Tina Ahern, Jen Filikanovsky, David Bizek, The Mysterious Michelle X, Elsbeth Feldman, Leah Stoller, Alan Christensen, Colleen Peck, Michelle Landry, Josina, Sarah Durkis, Kelly Cameron, Janet Selby, Claire Adams, Tom Franzek, Jeanette Bennett, Gila Cert, David Donahue, Blair Cyber, Dorona Vizov, Gio and Carolyn Argentati, Jody Friesner, Misha Rosen, Michael Warbeck, Aviva Lael, Alicia Lemus, Val Linneman, Nick Harper, Bandana Charlie, Molly Levine, The Inscrutable Harry R., Susan Laverty, The Panda Vegan, Craig Kovic, Adam Scharf, Karen Burry, Heather Morgan, Nigel Davies, Marion Blum, Teresa Koppel, Julian Watkins, Breed O'Connell, Sharon Hirschman, Linda Ayat, Holm Hedegaard, Isa Tuzinwa, Connie Hainline, Aaron Greer, Alicia Davis, Heather O'Connor, Carolyn Jensen, Sherry Olakoski of Plant Powered for Health, Karen Smith, Scott Morani, Karen and Joe Crabtree, Kirby Burton, Teresa Carell, Kevin McCauley, Elizabeth Rothschild, Ann Jesse, Cheryl Dwyer, Jenny Hazelton, Peter W. Evans, Dennis Bird, Darby Kelly, Laurie Fenney, Linnea Lundquist, Emily Iconelli, Levy Wallach, Rosamund McAtee, Dan Picorni, Stephen Leenan, Patty DiMartino, Mike and Donna Kartz, Deanne Bishop, Bilberry Elf, Marjorie Lewis, Tricia Adams, Nancy Sheldon, Lindsay Bayshore, Gunmarit Hagen, Tracy Gullidge, Laura Heaton, Meg from Mama Says, Stacey Stokes, Ben Savage, Michael Kay, David Hughes, Connie Rogers, Claire England, Sally Robertson, Param Ganchi, Amy Daly, Brian Tourville, Mark Jeffrey Johnson, Josie Dempsey, Karen Schmidt, Pamela Hayden, Emily Perryman, Allison Corbett, Richard Stone, Lauren Vaught of Edible Musings, Aaron Hasty, Sean Owen, Sagar Naik, Erica Piedra, Danielle Roberts, Michael Lushton, Sarah Johnson, Catherine Floyd, for your generous support of the podcast. That's it for now. As always, be well, my friends.